188 countries voted to urge the United States to lift the measure. As our correspondent Alexandra Hall reports, only 2 countries voted against the resolution.
On Tuesday, for the 23rd time since 1992, the UN General Assembly voted overwhelmingly in favor of a resolution that would end the U.S. economic embargo against Cuba. As in past years, the United States and Israel were the only countries to vote against the declaration, with 188 countries voting in favor and 3 countries voting in abstention. At the United Nations, member states praised Cuba for their commitment to the fight against the Ebola outbreak. As of now, Cuba has sent more medical professionals to West Africa than any other country. Reporting from Washington, I'm Alexandra Hall.
And thanks to Alexandra, 1 month after the disappearance of 43 Mexican students, the government hopes that the announcement of new arrests and a new interim governor in the state shows that it is doing everything possible to find the students. However, many are pointing the finger of blame at the government itself, as our correspondent Clayton Kahn continues his coverage.
2 of the detained have said they received a large group of people, and in this moment they are giving their statement on the whereabouts of those individuals, but they are still testifying at this moment.
Meanwhile, university students protest outside the headquarters of the ruling Revolutionary Institutional Party, or PRI. They say they distrust the government's investigation and believe it is seeking to only gain political capital from the case.
El linchamiento mediático que hay con el gobierno de Guerrero no soluciona el problema. Realmente yo creo que esto es una responsabilidad del Estado, del Ejecutivo Federal y del Congreso.
Some experts also say the PRI is complicit in the extrajudicial murders and disappearances of the 43 dissident Ayotzinapa students, viewing it as a mechanism of social control.
This is starting to generate a situation of social terror, which is what our environment is becoming. They are killing so many people, and the state does not know, does not act, does not investigate or do anything about it.
It has now been 32 days since these mothers last saw their sons, and they say they will keep marching until the 43 missing return home alive. Clayton Kahn, Telesur, Mexico City.
Thanks to Clayton. We go to Venezuela now, where another person has been taken into custody following the assassination of Congressman Robert Serra last month. Colombian paramilitary groups have been linked to the killing of the young socialist congressman. 3 Venezuelans have now been detained. The new arrest comes as President Nicolás Maduro reveals that rogue policemen helped in the assassination. Maduro says he will restructure the police force to root out such elements. In Ecuador, the country's National Assembly has rejected a lawsuit against the government filed by the International Press Association. The organization includes most of Latin America's private newspapers and is demanding that the government annuls a new media law approved last year. The law seeks to make the distribution of radio and television frequencies more equal, including by giving greater say to community media. It also seeks to establish an ethical code for journalists to follow, which sanctions discrimination and regulates other abuses. A convoy of Iraqi Kurdish fighters and weapons is approaching the Syrian town of Kobani. They hope to help fellow Kurds break a month-long siege by the Islamic State. The Iraqi troops are expected to bring heavy artillery to the battle. Locals gathered on the roadside waving flags and celebrating as the military convoy drove past, but riot police fired tear gas to disperse the crowd. The fighters are expected to enter via Turkey, which has faced criticism for not allowing its own Kurdish population to cross the border and join the fight. Turkey fears emboldening its own Kurdish population, its demands for independence. The fighting in Kobani has led to hundreds of thousands fleeing, but some have stayed to fight against the group's advances. And to the United States we go, where an unmanned rocket exploded into flames minutes after its launch on Tuesday. No one was harmed by the explosion. The commercial rocket was heading to the International Space Station with supplies. The incident took place in Wallops Island in the U.S. state of Virginia. It marks the first setback for NASA since it decided to cancel its space shuttle program. Instead, NASA has opened up contracts to private businesses to deliver supplies to the space station. A Russian rocket lifted off a few hours after the explosion, also carrying supplies for the station. And to Ukraine we go, where U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has issued a warning to Russia. Kerry says Russia should not recognize the elections that rebel forces planned for the east of the country this weekend. The elections are set to take place despite ongoing clashes in some parts of the east. Kerry says that if Russia recognized the outcome, it would violate the Minsk peace protocol signed last month to put an end to the conflict. That measure called for elections in December, not November. Fighting has so far cost over 300 lives. And in Hungary, tens of thousands took to the streets late Tuesday to protest attacks on internet use planned by the government. This is the second massive demonstration held over the past 3 days. Leaders claim that the new tax is to balance the budget. Opponents see it as a restriction on their right to information. Protesters point out that the government did not consult the measure with any social group or even its own party's lawmakers. And for a cultural story, we go to Gaza, where Palestinian artist Iyad Sabah used clay sculptures of men, women, and children. The sculptures stand to depict the suffering of thousands of Gazans during the last Israeli offensive against the Strip, killing over 2,000 civilians. Sabah's installation was placed in the Sabalak Shenja district on the border with Israel. The neighborhood was reduced to rubble and was also on the front line when Israeli ground troops entered the Strip. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle.